Those were the days.
Hey everyone, Justin Lee Harold here with another episode of Those Are the Days Extended. This week, I take you back to January 14th, 1998, when one of our favorites, Mr. Bo Brady, broke up with Billie Reed to reunite with Hope. And this is after Bo and Billie sort of consummated their marriage, forced marriage, but consummated, and Billie ended up pregnant. So this is sort of kind of the beginning of the end for this particular portion of their story. And I wanted to dive deep this week into sort of the Bo and Billie relationship. Not all of it, because it spanned decades at this point now. But I wanted to sort of take us back down memory lane and sort of give you the details of that first portion of when they were getting together and a few of the hurdles that they faced in their first sort of interactions. But yeah, starting off, give you a little history lesson of Bo and Billie. When Billie came to town, she was this sort of singer who was addicted to drugs at the time. It was really trying to clean up her life. She had sort of had one foot in wanting to have a better life and another foot sort of in her addiction. She comes across Bo here. And this, of course, I want to mention this is Lisa Rinna's the original Billie here. And then we have God, I'm just Robert Cowker Kelly when he stepped in for Peter Recco, who took some time away from the show. So this is their version, which some people still hold close to their heart. And again, understand different actors have come in over the years to play these parts, but the Bo and Billie saga started with Lisa Rinna and Robert here. But yeah, Billie sort of came to town. The only person she knew in town was her brother Austin. She was, again, a singer who was addicted to drugs, trying to sort of reclaim her life and get on a better path. And Bo sort of was helping her, reluctant to do that. I think he felt some pity for her. He was helping her turn her life around while also simultaneously sort of falling for her. And Bo at the time was he was basically reeling from being heartbroken from his failed relationship with Carly Manning, who had just sort of dumped him and rode off into the sunset with Lawrence and Nikki Alamane. But yeah, Bo and Billie are sort of circling each other. He's helping her become a better person. She is putting in the work, and their first hurdle comes when Billie's sort of destructive, abusive father, Curtis Reed, kind of comes back in the show. If you remember Curtis, he was the ultimate Days villain, a short stint in terms of the length of the show, but just very memorable. And he was the villain that sort of made Stefano DeMiro look really good in a weird way. So yeah, he was just an all around just disgusting human being. He molested Billie, and it was abusive to Cade and abusive to her and Austin, and just a all around sort of bad person to be around. But Curtis gets murdered, and then Billie sort of becomes a prime suspect in his murder. Bo sort of jumps in and becomes obsessed with like clearing Billie's name. He becomes her biggest defender in wanting to solve the murder of Curtis to sort of exonerate Billie. He actually successfully does that. Billie is exonerated. She sort of has this newfound freedom and take on life. She starts Countess Wilhelmina, the cosmetics company. She becomes friends with Jennifer and Kristen and Tony and Jack, and she's building this sort of great new life in Salem with Bo, with new friends. She is clean and sober, and she is this kind of boss, sort of starting this business and moving forward with this great life. And then the inevitable happens. Or biggest hurdle that they face in their relationship throughout the years has been, of course, that is the Bo and Hope of it all. And this particular one is probably my favorite, or one of my favorite storylines that Days has ever done. And I want to particularly highlight this picture here. This is, of course, I'm referring to when Hope comes back as Gina. And we've gone ad nauseum about the Princess Gina storyline, so I'm not going to delve into that much with this one, but I'm going to look at the other side of it and of the Bo, Hope, and Billie portion of it. This particular photo I picked out, and I want to use this is a promotional still, of course, but I want to use this because of this picture sort of exemplifies what was going on at that time and why this was such an interesting storyline. And if you don't remember, they sort of made the powers that be sort of created this triangle where no one was a bad guy. And specifically, the actual dominant relationship was not Bo and Billie or Gina as or Hope as Gina and Bo. It was actually between Billie and Gina, who at this time became best friends. As you remember, Hope came back as Gina. She didn't know who she was. She had a completely different personality. She wasn't interested in Bo Brady. She was just interested in sort of living her life in this new place in Salem. And all these people were sort of around her telling her that she looks like Hope. And there was a question, is she Hope? Is she not Hope? That went on for a couple of years at this point. But again, the dominant relationship here was the friendship between Billie and Gina, who found themselves not at odds about Bo. I think they both realized that they were in this weird sort of situation where Billie is the newfound fiance and she has a life that she's building, and in comes this woman who looks like, her guy's dead wife essentially, and Gina is coming in as this amnesiac with a completely different personality than Hope. She isn't interested in being Hope. She is interested in just getting control of her life and moving forward. And so yeah, that to me is why it was such a great storyline in the 90s. Like I said, they basically created this triangle where there wasn't a bad guy. It wasn't, Gina having machinations or being a mustache twirling villain and causing trouble for Billie and Bo, who actually stayed together at this point. So yeah, that to me is why this particular triangle and plot line was so influential and interesting back in the early 90s. But moving along with the saga, so Gina and Billie sort of retain this friendship and even sort of at one point make a pact that they don't want Bo to sort of come in between their friendship. Like I said, that was sort of the dominant relationship, was this friendship between Gina and Hope, who you think the powers that be would sort of have them become adversaries quick and be at each other's throat, and it just wasn't that. And I think it made for such a far more interesting storyline than if it was a traditional, soap opera triangle. So moving forward, sort of Bo and Billie attempt to marry a couple of times. It doesn't work out. They decide they do want to move forward with things, even if this woman is Hope. And at this point, Gina wasn't revealed to be Hope yet. So basically, Bo and Gina decide to sign divorce papers, even if it turns out that she is Hope, just to clear the way for sort of Bo and Billie to be together and be happily married. At this point, Gina is actually revealed to be Hope, and Billie and sort of sees the writing on the wall that Bo will eventually give into his feelings for her, and they will become a couple. So she's sort of in a unceremoniously sort of tucks her tail between her legs and rushes and sort of leaves town and decides, what, I'm not going to stand in the way of these two people. I love Bo. I love my new life, but this is a little much for me, and I don't want to be the other woman, or I don't want to get into a fight for Bo, basically Bo's hand. So that kind of concludes that portion of it, and this is where things change a little bit. Sort of the next iteration of that, where Billie comes back she comes back approximately about a year later, and this is where they don't give up on what we saw previously, but here's where they decide to make this situation a little bit more soapy, and it sort of reverts back to old soap tropes. Basically, Krista Allen enters the picture, and she is the new Billie. And I think the writers want to take an opportunity to sort of make Billie a little bit gray here, and they decide to make her a little bit more of a troublemaker and a thorn in the side of Bo and Billie. So Krista Allen's Billie comes back. She basically has this sort of attitude that her life was messed up, and she sort of lost a lot when she left town and decided to give in to sort of the Bo and Hope of it all, and decides that basically she does want Bo back, and that she's going to come back and she's going to fight for him, and she has every right to have him as much as Hope does. And so she stakes her claim. At this time, Bo and Hope are engaged. They have sort of this misunderstanding. The wedding gets called off, and then Billie sort of sees her way in. And this time, Billie is a cop. Her and Bo basically go undercover. While they're going undercover, they pose as a couple who's getting married. They have to go through the marriage to keep up the charade. And this is where Billie actually ends up pregnant with what we know is, at the time, Georgia. What we now know is their daughter, Chelsea. Billie loses the baby in the swamps, of course, in Maison Blanche. We'll remember that storyline, and she sort of blames Hope for it. Bo is sort of torn between, does he stay with Billie because he is legally married to her? They are now grieving a child, or does he sort of give in to his feelings for Hope? He decides, he's sort of conflicted, but I think he sort of is willing to stay with Billie for the long haul, and he wants to be sort of noble. He actually finds out that Billie sort of not faked the miscarriage, of course, but sort of wasn't as truthful about how she miscarried and sort of blamed Hope. And so, that was the end of Bo and Billie at the time. She, of course, leaves town for good. Bo picks Hope, they get married, and they sort of resume everything we know from 2000s on in the Bo and Hope saga. The reason why, again, I said I wanted to sort of delve deep in this relationship is, and this, I know this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, I've stated it before, in sort of a continuation of last week's unpopular opinion where I said that I prefer Patrick, actually Lockhart with Hope. This time, I actually prefer Bo with Billie. I know that's sacrilegious. I actually feel like they're the better couple. I think that Bo and Hope has sort of had this run that was great, and they built their history on opposites attract and the push and pull of their relationship. But I actually found over the years that I actually prefer Bo with Billie. I think they make a lot more sense to me as a couple personally. I see them a lot more compatible than he and Hope ever were. And I understand that he and Hope have such a rich history that spans decades at this point. And I understand I'm on the losing end of this battle, but yeah, if you gave me my choice of who Bo should be with, at the top of that list would be Billie, actually. And quite honestly, Hope wouldn't be number 2. She'd probably be number 3, I think, in the list after Carly. But yeah, I found that Bo and Billie made a lot more sense to me than the history of Bo and Hope. And I think the Bo and Hope coupledom rested a lot on the fact that a lot of it was nostalgia and history, and the whole true love thing, which I sometimes can get a little bit jaded on when soaps push it. But again, hot take, always found Bo and Billie to be the better couple. And like I said, I preferred Hope with other people as well. So that would have been my take on it. Again, I like how it all ended up in the end, in that they're all friends now, and the more stringent couple sort of won. But yeah, that's sort of my hot take, unpopular opinion on these two. So yeah, that sort of wraps up our little delving into the initial sort of saga of Bo and Billie as a couple. Again, it went on for a couple more years after this, with Julie Pinson came back at one point as a different Billie, who was sort of a mix between Lisa Rinna's and Krista Allen's, but and then Lisa Rinna, of course, has come back over the few years here and there. So there's a lot more Bo and Billie to examine after this, but I want to take a little walk down memory lane into the first sort of portion of their coupledom and why it was so significant, again, with that initial triangle, which was such a different way to do things, that I think Days got a lot of mileage of it. And like I said, I think my unpopular opinion notwithstanding, I think that there are a lot of us who prefer sort of Bo with Billie and remember that era of the show very fondly. So yeah, that was my take this week, where I brought you back to January 14th, 1998, where Bo broke up with Billie Reed to reunite with Hope. So yeah, see you guys next time on Those Were the Days Extended. Thanks.
Those were